Hi, everyone. I have Summer Howard back here to talk to me. And one of the reasons why I invited you back on was because it wasn't that you left me with a cliffhanger, but I had this ongoing thought when I was usually after I have a podcast interview. I talk a lot about the person's ideas in my clinical practice and my groups for the whole week. There's just certain things that you said that I thought were really brilliant, needed to be said out loud again. And earlier, when we are talking today, getting on the call, we were both talking about, like, yes, it's so busy to have a clinical practice, a mediation practice, and we both are so invested in the education part of what we do. So, just educating people, and this is why we do these podcasts, and I call people back to answer another question, is because I really want to educate the people that are listening to these clips, because there's so much that you can learn that can really help you move through this process. And there was something that you said that I was like, okay, I want like 10 more ideas there for the audience here, which is to really think about, when you're not in a grief period, because when you're in a grief period, you have to contend with the grief. But when you're not in a grief period, it's a time for you to really look at what's my next chapter going to be, and am I setting myself up well for that next chapter? And I wanted kind of more thoughts about that. I'm going to just say one other thing about that before, because I want you to include this too. So many people that are in my groups, they talk about this idea of they really can't talk about people with this topic with people in their lives, because people actually just say things that make them feel better, not the person that's struggling. And there's that thing of like, you're still thinking about that. You're still getting over that. Like, it's been like 3 years, like what's going on? But there is this part, it's so hard to just start looking at, there's going to be another chapter. And how can we, like the universal we, set up in your mind how to set that up for yourself so you're going to be safe. And then also kind of visualize, like what we said, like, leap and the net will appear. But, it's so much from the leap and the net, like there's so much space in there. So I wonder how you approach that with your clients.
Oh, this is juicy. This is so juicy because that initial grief period, it's almost like the concept of change versus transition, right? It's like the change is this abrupt, kind of blunt force to your life and the grief that happens there. But then there's this elongated kind of grief period, and that's the transition of, after a few years, you will have gone through all those firsts, like the first time having your own mortgage, or the first time, looking for an apartment on your own, or the first time buying a car, the first time going to the kids back to school and seeing, your ex spouse. So I was thinking about this topic, and just the idea of, first off, right off the bat, just be gentle with yourself, knowing that this next chapter is going to be like a cornucopia, like a buffet of incredible experiences and things, but you're not going to eat it all at once. You're not going to consume it all at once. You needed time to get through it. You have to know that it's going to take time. Something that came to my mind was, I've heard Wayne Dyer, he's now passed, but Wayne Dyer, I saw him speak once, and he said, you can't rush a tulip shoot, and that's what we are. We are after divorce, we're like these little plants that are coming to life again with a new set of nutrients, a new way of being in the world. It isn't like it was before. We are new, and you cannot rush that process. And so being gentle with yourself. And in that way, for me personally, and this is what I also extend to my clients, because I've had to go through this transition twice. And it was journaling affirmations that really helped me out. This is like the practical stuff, right? In general, let's be kind to ourselves. Let's know that it's going to take some space. But journaling these two ideas in particular, because I was rewiring my brain about how I thought about how I had to go and rush through life and like get it perfect right out of the gate. And that's just not what this experience has, right? It's still kind of ups and downs as we get out of that first like 3 years, really. That's what I've seen anyway. 3 to 5 years of,
Yeah.
you know,
I like that thought of the
divorce.
change versus transition. Like the changes in the cornucopia, there are first, like the first time you ate that thing, the first time you saw those colors. So there is this like, just be prepared and predict, like, oh yeah, I'm walking into a first. Oh, I'm exhausted because I just had my first experience, like going to a party by myself or whatever
Yes.
it might be, doing something difficult, like taking some more reins financially. So there is that change. So the change is in itself one of the steps, right? And then the grief might be there. And then the grief is something to really keep reminding yourself of your compassion. Like, yeah, this is not easy. This is not easy stuff. Not everybody understands it. People, when you walk in, aren't even going to be thinking at the level of change that you're experiencing. They're not even going to be aware of it. So compassion with like almost like how much can you handle? How much can you handle of the cornucopia? Maybe you're just going to take a look at it and then just, walk over and sit down and have a glass of water. Maybe that's all.
Exactly. No, actually participating in it.
Right.
Agreed.
And the transition is more of the process. Like, okay, I've done all of these first. Now I'm not doing the first anymore. So I'm actually really on the edge of transition now. I'm getting used to this.
Getting used to it. Some things that helped me, just these ideas formulate for me to get to remember that the seat of power rests within me is I journaled, and it was just like it was almost like writing it until I believed it was true, which was I trust myself with my own life. I trust myself with my own life. That has been just very powerful for me in particular. I know that it's helped a lot of others as well, because we may have even come from our family of origin, just enmeshed and like looking to others to like solve problems for us or with us, always looking for partnership to have a self-identity. And this really is an opportunity to say, "Ooh, wow, here I am, and I trust me with my life."
Yeah, I like those 3 thoughts. You said this before, the seat of power. And I like that concept a lot. And I think that people need to think about like in what areas the seat of power was in their relationships, like what area they had it, what area their partners had it, whether it was the domestic area, the kid area, the financial area, or even the social area. Like sometimes people have the seat of power socially.
Yes.
And then that whole idea of like trusting yourself to trusting yourself. How did you say this? I trust myself with my own life.
With my own life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And noticing like maybe there was parts of the way that you did relationships in the past was you actually really identified yourself with another person. You were really like entangled with like a group of friends or your family that like really helped you identify like, oh, I'm doing life with these people. So now it's like really trusting yourself with your own life, making decisions about your own life. So it's such a shift, right?
Exactly. It is a shift. It is a shift. And I don't know. I mean, you could be at any stage of relationship, but it's, particularly for those that like coupled early on, in the 20s when you were kind of coming up with your own identity.
Yeah.
It's a shift. It really is. And you can even bypass this period by coupling up with a different person, someone that looks compatible and then going on and stuff. But this is the real work. This stuff is here for you always to come back to, because this is the real work of, feeling that, we've been in a coaching program before, you and I, Susan, where there was a lot of talk of sovereignty. And that is that seat of power that I'm discussing right now, which is I have sovereignty over my actions. I have the power to react however I choose to the situation. And though I think that concept is what will carry people through that period of transition when you've gone through the that immediate change, and you're in this kind of like unfolding those 3 years, and focusing on, what do I want my life to look like now? Right? Because that was a part of the setup for this extended interview, which is,
Mhm.
how do you do that after a loss, such a loss, such a change? And it's cool to have a new way of thinking about your life that really is, what do I want to create? Because that it rests right here, right
Mhm.
with me.
Right. So people who are listening to this, we know that it's not so simple as, okay, my next chapter is going to have all these things in it that I want. We know that there's a process that you're going to be going through, that you're going to be coming in and out, back and forth, trying to figure out who you are, what you want, do your best thinking in the mediation, financial part of your separation, so that you feel like you have some kind of understanding about how you're moving forward in that sort of safety financial way, if that was a seat of power that you did not have in your marriage. And then to really keep envisioning, like, what do you want? And we know it's going to take some time to figure it out, and keep circling back to self, like trusting yourself that you're going to be making the best decisions for you, not for 3 other people, but for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, there's so many different decisions that are happening
Mm-hmm.
during that transition after divorce, that it is the that's
Name
why it's
like 5 of
important.
them. What do you feel like the top 5 that you hear people talking about?
So housing is one,
Yeah.
your income is the other. And I would say those are the 2 really big ones. And then of course, co-parenting and dealing
Yeah.
with the decisions about your children on a week-to-week basis when you're co-parenting school-age children. I would say those are the main. And then how do I start dating again? How do I open my heart up to other people
Right.
after?
What's my social life looking like
And
now?
what does your social life look like? Exactly.
Mhm.
What do you like to do?
Right.
you know, and then parents are in that weird spot where it's like, well, it was all about the kids. And then I have this free time now, if you're on a 50-50 schedule, which many of us are. What do I do? Who am I? How do I get off the couch and not feel sorry for myself about this? And there is that period. I'm just acknowledging there's a period of the couch sitting. And
Mhm.
then there's an awakening that happens, and she's like, I can get out there and I can start doing something different, maybe rekindling old things that I love to do. That's usually where I start, and
Right.
where my clients start, is just look back before the relationship. What things did you love to do?
Yeah. And sometimes I think if people are really struggling with the getting off the couch part, that is an indicator that you really need a little bit more support,
Agreed.
because there can be this period of time where depression really is like a kicking in, and you need to figure out how to or negativity, like, sometimes you've been in a
Exactly.
negative relationship for a really long time, so it's hard to drop the negativity part and actually feel like I want to be with other people, or I even get a sense that people might want to be with me. It's that negativity
Yeah,
part needs to shift, also to remember that who you are, that you aren't the negative part of your relationship anymore. Like, if that felt like where your identity was for a while, really giving yourself time to shift and get support if you cannot get off the couch.
exactly. The choices that you're making about income, and it even applies if you have a full-time job, a professional job, because you still have to maintain that job while you're divorcing. that is no small feat. And then there is the situation where you may have been underemployed and need to get a job, or a new career. And again, in those choices, what do I want? Maybe you don't want to go back to work full time. That's maybe out of your control. You have to do that, but your choice lies in maybe not the schedule, right? But the choice lies in, what are you going to do for that? How are you going to contribute your talents and time?
Right, right. And maybe that's what switches. A lot of things switch, like housing, the way you make money, the way you spend your time. the way you socialize, the way you parent. So there's a lot of shifts, a
Exactly.
lot of changes. And then the integration of it is the transition, right? That you start
Yes.
developing your way to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a feeling of having ground beneath your feet. There is. You'll feel it. It does come, but just to acknowledge, you know, be kind to yourself, and then also know that you have the power a lot of times in how you approach this transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for giving us those tips. I felt like there was still that part of that struggle that I see my clients go to, is like how to get to that next chapter, because it
Yeah,
feels sometimes so far away, or they have to accomplish so much to feel like they get to it, you know?
totally,
Mm,
totally.
like
And you have to
when
get
is
it
the
perfect
chapter?
right out of the
Yeah,
bat or something, and that's
right.
not the way it goes.
Right. So the next chapter really is building up back yourself,
Yeah,
and then having your next chapter of the practice of how you want your life to be. And you might be practicing for a little bit because it needs to be like readjusted or tweaked here and there, or
exactly.
re-experienced.
Exactly.
So good. Well, I'm really glad that we got another chance to talk just about that little piece. And I
Thank you,
hope that helps
Susan.
people listening. I hope it really gives you some more clues on being kind to yourself, some of the concepts of which we covered today. And keep listening. There'll be more little clips like this to give you some boosts of energy along the way. So thanks always for
Thanks
being a part
again.
of it. Okay. Bye, Summer. Take good
Bye.
care.
Thanks, Susan.